New York looks a little different today. When I bought my first camera, I didn't have the slightest clue of what street photography was. All I knew was that I wanted to travel and bring my camera with me everywhere I went. Early on, I was pretty heavily influenced by creators that I was seeing on social media who were doing some really cool things in some of the most beautiful places around the world, and I became especially interested in all the landscapes that I was seeing. Because of that, whenever the time came to go on a trip somewhere, I wanted to see some of these places for myself. I went to places like Oregon, southern Germany, Austria, the Italian Dolomites, all around New England, just for the purpose of hiking and capturing the landscapes. However, I eventually realized that being a landscape photographer wasn't exactly a very smart thing to pursue financially. But it wasn't just the landscapes that I cared about. I simply wanted to travel and document some really cool places. And then it kind of dawned on me that I live within arm's length of arguably the most famous city in the entire world, and I barely paid any attention to it. So I thought maybe I should just go get my fix of travel and take photos there. And so I did. I would go to New York City about once a month, take a few cliche photos at some of the popular Instagram spots, all while waiting to go on my next trip. And that's where this all started. I began going to the city a lot more frequently, and I eventually learned about a little thing called street photography, and I became fully immersed. So last month, my girlfriend and I spent 2 weeks in the French and Swiss Alps. These were places that I wanted to go to for a long time because I've seen all the photos from there and they look absolutely unreal, and it was a pretty clear winner when we were deciding our summer destination. In this video, I'm just going to talk about our first week when we stayed in Chamonix, France, but I just kind of want to show you some of the things that we did and some of the photos that I was able to take. Okay, so if my memory serves me correctly, I haven't used this camera since August of 2024, and now it's August of 2025, so it's been a year. I brought this with me instead of the CL because it doesn't give me weird light leaks, and I also have two lenses for this. I have a 35 and a 50, and for the CL, I only have a 35, so gonna load some Lomachrome Color 92. 400 speed. First time shooting this, so let's see how it goes. Perfect. Nice. All right, let's take, I think this will be the first shot right here from the balcony. Pretty crazy view. So yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to that roll. It came back very underexposed looking, but I'm like 100% certain that I did not underexpose that film because I was shooting at 320 instead of 400. So yeah, bummer. I was only able to salvage a few of the shots, but it is what it is. Very nice here. Conditions are great. Very tired though, so we're just gonna get dinner tonight, and then I think tomorrow we're gonna do Lac Blanc. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is a very popular hike here in Chamonix. So, oh, you can hear the train going. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's like, oh, there it is, right there. All right, enough yapping. We got really lucky with the weather on this trip because aside from one night of rain, every other day was beautiful and sunny, which was great for photos and for hiking, but not necessarily great for me because my face and neck got absolutely cooked by the sun on this hike. tired trip. Granted, she's on like full auto, so, or shutter priority?
I was on auto.
On auto, there you go. If you are interested, this is a Nikon Coolpix P330.
That's the good stuff.
I got her for your birthday?
Yeah, it's my favorite camera I've ever used.
Actually, no, it's actually kind of solid. So I actually didn't take a ton of photos on this day. I think the number in my Lightroom catalog is 45 digital photos. And I think that's just because I was also shooting film and filming video as well. And, you know, it was nice to just use the Nikon as well after basically not shooting with it for a year. The hike was objectively beautiful. Like, it's absolutely gorgeous, but there weren't a ton of scenes that I was like personally drawn to capturing. When it comes to taking photos in a setting like this, I naturally want to include people in my photos, but that's a little bit more challenging just because like hiking attire isn't exactly too interesting, and also taking photos of people is a little bit more challenging just because you're all on the same path, so you can't just like take a photo and walk away from someone because most of the time you're going to the same place. So whenever I did include people in my shots, it was more so just for scale or a pop of color, but the main focus of the photos was typically the background and the scenery. Every night we would walk over into the downtown part of Chamonix to get dinner, and that was kind of my time to get a little bit more of those urban classic street photos, I guess. TT Artisan sent me their new 40mm f2 lens, which I brought with me on this trip, and I was using that and just testing it out, and I wrote a blog about it, so if you're interested, I'll leave that linked in the description. But yeah, this first full day was pretty chill and slow when it came to photography. All right, day 2. If you're wondering why I have this long sleeve draped over my head, is because my face and neck got absolutely cooked on yesterday's hike, so now I have to take precaution. Came up on the gondola, paid 24 euros per person to not really do the full hike just because our legs are pretty tired from yesterday, but anyways, found this nice little lookout on top of this rock. Gonna chill here, maybe do a little bit of the trail, and then go down. Let's take a photo. We went back down towards the gondola very shortly after just because we were a little bit jet lagged and pretty tired from the previous day, but that's where I finished the roll of Lomo. There were a ton of paragliders there setting up, getting ready to fly, and then taking off, so we hung out there for a little bit and watched them do that. Before we headed down, we stopped to grab coffee, and I actually took some photos there that I really like. I think these photos are good examples of blending a more traditional candid street shot with like a landscape, just because you have the layers and the people in the foreground, but then you have the mountain range in the background, and I think it's photos like these that goes to show that you can do street photography really anywhere as long as you're capturing life in a candid way, whether that's on a busy city street or on a mountain a few thousand meters above sea level. All right, finished the roll of Lomo, so gonna load Kodachrome 200. Not Kodachrome. Color Plus. What the hell am I saying? There we go. Alright. The next day was a little bit different because instead of hiking, we opted to drive an hour outside of Chamonix to the beautiful city of Annecy. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I absolutely love cities that are on some kind of body of water, like they border a river or lake or ocean. I just really like the depth and the atmosphere that you can get in photos like that, and yeah, that's why Annecy was a must visit for me. When we got there, we basically parked right by the Annecy Lake, so we took some time to explore that area a bit. After that, we walked over to the Old Town part of Annecy, which is where we spent most of our time. In that area, we mainly just saw tourists. There wasn't really a ton of locals, I guess, in that area, unless you kind of walked into the outskirts of Annecy a little bit. But I was still able to get some photos that I really liked. We only spent a total of like 4 or 5 hours in Annecy just because neither me or Jenna love walking around in the blazing heat. But I was happy to come away with a few photos that I really like. And I definitely think I would like to visit Annecy again sometime in the future and stay for like 2 or 3 days because it's beautiful. Day 4 was a pretty good day in terms of photos. Our goal on this day was to hike at least part of the Grand Balcon Nord Trail, which is very popular, but in order to get to the trailhead, you have to take a train through like the mountains to Mer de Glace, which is a glacier in the valley with some insane views. When we got up, the morning light was very slowly creeping into the valley, and we saw more of it as we hiked up and time passed, but the views throughout the entirety of this trail were just unreal. This trail was really interesting because it had some rock scrambles and switchbacks that made for pretty interesting compositions, and I was able to incorporate more people in my photos. We didn't do the full 9 mile out and back. We did about 4 miles, which were absolutely beautiful. And before taking the train back down into Chamonix, we kind of hung around and got some coffee, and I was able to take a few photos just kind of overlooking the glacier. On our last full day, we decided to do one more hike to Lac Cornu, and that day also ended up being pretty slow in terms of photos, with only about 58 digital photos taken. This is our last day in Chamonix, capping it off with a relatively short hike, about 4.5 or 5 miles round trip. I think in the last couple days I've started incorporating people into my shots a little bit more, so excited for that. Starting to lose a little bit of breath the further we go up, but I'll pick this back up in a bit. Alright, we're about to cross over onto the other face of the mountain. Now we go down here, and wherever that lake is, I think we still have to go somewhere behind this right here. We have made it, technically. The trail continues down to the lake, but there's no cover from the sun down there, and I don't know, I just feel like the view wouldn't be as good. So we just kind of perched up on a rock up here in the shade. Last hike of the trip. Anyways, pretty cool. Okay, so tonight is our final night here in Chamonix, and tomorrow we are driving down south to a little village called Beauzelle, which is about 2 hours south. We're only there for 3 nights, and then after that we go to Switzerland for 3 nights, which we only decided to do 3 nights in Switzerland because we're not made of money. But yeah, anyways, Chamonix, this place is gorgeous. Definitely gonna miss this place, and it's been really fun kind of being here and hiking and just kind of exploring the area. If you're someone who, enjoys being outdoors, enjoys hiking, definitely put this on your bucket list because this place is insane. I think in terms of photos, I haven't really done a ton of reviewing of the photos I took, but I definitely have some that I am excited to edit once I get home, even though I'm only home for 3 days, and then it's off to the west, out to Utah and Idaho. Yeah, a lot of landscape and like travel stuff in the month of August, but it's very exciting. This video is obviously going to be titled what it is. It's interesting because I started going on trips like this when I was kind of getting into photography in like 2020, 2021. Being in places like this almost reminded me why I picked up a camera. But at the same time, obviously my work has shifted into more of a street photography, documentary style. And being here now with the, style that I have now, it's been kind of interesting seeing how, I've been looking at things differently and incorporating people into my work, whether that's just like at the huts and refuges around some of the hikes that we've been on, in the town of Chamonix, and then obviously on like the trails, and just kind of like, using people as subjects in these larger frames, where they provide scale or silhouettes and things like that. So I think if I never got into street photography or I never really cared for it, I think this is what I would be doing a lot more. But it's kind of nice now to have more of a documentary or fine art helicopter behind me. Yeah, it's nice to have more of that like documentary or fine art style through street photography, and kind of bringing that into a bit of landscape and travel work. So don't know how everything's going to turn out. Obviously I haven't really looked at the photos, but excited. So I know that this isn't the typical setting for the type of work that I make and the type of work that you might know me for. I've kind of been thinking about this a lot recently, but as I continue to progress as a photographer, I don't only want to be restricted to going to big cities to shoot, I want to be able to travel wherever I find interesting, and over time want to evolve the style that I've built in these urban areas and take that style and be able to photograph anywhere I want to go, whether that's, in the mountains or in some small towns, across the US. I think, as I continue growing this channel and evolving my style, that's something that you will see more from me, because I don't want to be just one dimensional. I want to kind of broaden the places I travel to. And it's inevitable that I will be kind of traveling more, I would say, over the next few years as this channel grows, and, hopefully you guys will stick around. But yeah, it's just a thought I had from going on a trip like this. And I was a little bit kind of wondering if I should, like what kind of videos I would make on this trip, because if I didn't make anything, it would almost feel like a waste. But that's a really silly way of thinking. But I think if you guys are watching this, then thank you. I'm confident that, even now and moving forward, that I'll be able to grow as a photographer and be able to take photos basically wherever. The move from landscape to street wasn't exactly very intentional. It was just kind of how it all worked out, given kind of where I live and how often I wanted to go shoot. But, I'm very grateful for how it all played out in the end, because now I can take what I've learned from shooting in the city and incorporate it into settings like these. Anyways, that's the end of this one. We recently hit 10,000 subscribers, so thank you so much if you are part of that number. And if you're not and you enjoyed this video, then please consider doing so. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.